Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.
Well, many thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We're really excited to be joined by Chloe Bullock. She's Brighton-based interior designer and she runs Materialise Interiors. She designs spaces for clients both in the commercial and residential fields, and obviously she's got all the interior design skills you need, but she's also got an education in sustainability and human-centered design, as well as vegan design. We're going to be talking all about that, but she was awarded Compassionate Designer in the PETA Awards, the Vegan Homeware Awards in 2023. She was also one of the 9 founding signatories of Interior Design Declares, which was launched in March 2021, for those working in the interior design industry and supply chains to commit to strengthen our working practice to design spaces with a more positive impact on the world around us. So, Chloe, first of all, many thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you ever so much for having me.
You've also written an amazing book, Sustainable Interior Design, which is beautifully designed itself, and some lovely examples and case studies that you've put in there, which we're going to talk about in a bit too. So, before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please? What got you into design?
Of course, yeah. So I guess I was lucky that I kind of hit on my passions early, really, because through school, I just loved art and design, and it kind of just did it the sort of traditional, the classical route of just doing it through university, did the art foundation course, which I loved. And I actually, as I went to fill out my PCAS form, because it was in Polytechnic days, although I'd been to see the interior design course, it was the furniture design course that I applied for. I just really wanted to make things. I just at the last minute did the switch, and that sort of set me off on a 4-year degree, which I found really brilliant and challenging, and taught me a lot about materials and how we can design around problems. And I'd also sort of, meanwhile, sort of grown up really close to the body shop. So I live a mile away still from the first body shop.
Oh, right.
And so Anita Roddick was busy kind of setting up the first one, and my mum and my family were all really interested in the shop. And so I kind of grew up with her values and ethics as well. So, you know, she got loud to doing it. I became a teenager, you know, switched to being vegetarian and, you know, really anti-animal testing, and kind of followed all the campaigns really of this business. So when I graduated and came back to Brighton, it was like what was it, 1993. So it was kind of recession time. It was really hard to find work. Brighton was a difficult place to find anything design orientated. It was very finance and insurance and tourism in those days. It's much more creative now. There's lots of designers here, which is wonderful as well. But and I just thought, I've just got to write to Anita Roddick. So I asked for some work experience and was given this work experience, which was wonderful. And then this sort of 10-year career there kind of unfolded, which is just so educational, because it just taught me all the sustainability things early on, because I was a retail designer in the team there. And so we learned about, you know, transparency. We learned about material health and sustainability really early, you know, and also I was sort of watching and experiencing an ethical business as well, which was just wonderful. So yeah, they were very keen on kind of keeping you learning, you know, and so I learned so much, and I traveled and worked in Australia and all sorts of things, and yeah, it's the most brilliant experience, and that kind of set me up for doing my own thing. So I left there after 10 years, and I'm now in my 19th year. I can't believe it, of my own business. So, and yeah, I've kind of just carried on that way of doing things, but being a designer initially more for commercial projects, but then sometimes those I work for a lot of small businesses, and sometimes those business owners have then asked me to work on their homes. So I kind of definitely do a bit of both.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite staggering to sort of look back and realise, how fortunate I've been with those sort of choices, really.
Yeah, that must have been really interesting, like say working with Anita Roddick and the Body Shop in those early days, because it was, I mean, I was probably about the same age as you then, really, because I remember it being so exciting when when people started talking about it, and it was like different, wasn't it? It was like there is a
Oh,
different way of doing it, and you can do it as a commercial business, and the shops as well were designed so beautifully. They're inspiring as you go in, weren't they? With all the floors and the lighting and everything.
yeah, they're so consciously done,
Yeah.
and they were done sort of designed to last, but they were kind of designed to be attractive, and
Mm,
we had to kind of consider where they were in the world as well, and work with
of course.
local manufacturers, and kind of listen to the markets of kind of what they wanted, and not just sort of cookie cut this sort of
Yeah.
design everywhere, which taught me lots about marketing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such an influential place, and yet when you talk to people who only have heard the latter stages of the L'Oreal part of Body
Yeah.
Shop, and now this sort of asset stripping, and hopefully
Yeah.
it's not going to disappear, but it's definitely you know receded in size.
Mm,
But the work they've been doing right up until that point
yeah.
was just incredible, and I have sort of kind of dipped back into it because I wanted to write about it in the book.
Yeah.
And the store design is just been pushed so much further on, and it's so conscious, and it's so much better than what we did when we were there. It's incredible, and
Yeah.
they've become, they're B Corp, and
Yeah.
all the products are vegan. They've just worked really, really hard to improve and improve, and it's quite impressive because
Yeah.
you kind of think, how can they keep doing that? But yeah,
Yeah.
so I hope that they come back.
So do I. So do I. I really do too. Yeah. Obviously Biophilic design, and lots of people listening to this, obviously they're kind of like Biophilic design aficionados and lovers and
I
and
can
um
imagine.
and that and we obviously support a more sustainable way of designing, obviously by its nature. We try and use more natural materials and all that kind of thing, and natural light, so obviously it reduces that impact on the climate. But just as a kind of like, which is, I mean, a completely obvious really, but why for you personally is sustainability important?
It's this self-consciousness of kind of it's kind of surviving, but without doing harm,
Yeah.
and just applying that to your life. And for me, sustain it, the more I've become vocal about it and done more of it, selfishly, I guess my mental health has improved. I feel better for it. I feel better for sharing learnings on it, and not keeping things to myself, because this isn't something to do that with. Trying to help other people kind of go that way. But yeah, it's just this consciousness and connection to nature, and just kind of why would we want to self-harm? And it feels like self-harming what we are doing if we don't consider nature in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And I guess the Body Shop experience, watching a company grow and be conscious, and then see the ripples coming from that ethical
Mm.
business as well, and it just showed that it is possible to
Yeah.
do, and make a profit, but also be considerate as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is what's lovely about your book. I did want to ask you about interior design declares, but I'm going to ask you that a bit later on.
Okay.
I just wanted to move straight into your book actually and talk about, what I really loved. I mean, I've got a copy here in my hands, and I'm sort of just holding it up
Oh,
again for the YouTube and the video that goes on the website. But it's printed, it's published by Reba, and it's again, I'm just going to repeat it. It's sustainable interior design, and I'm just going to flick through the pages so people can see it. But I love how you started with just kind of giving a snapshot of like where we are with the atmosphere and the earth, and then the oceans and waterways, and then the interdependency of everything on it. But you say about how you've got fire retardants, have been found in the breast milk of women firefighters and all this kind of thing, and these fire retardants that we spray on fabric. So you point to all these things that are relevant to the design industry as well, and show that direct impact that it's having on our planet, on the health of our planet. You talk about Earth Overshoot Day and the word sustainable and what it means. There's just some beautiful case studies in here, and it's just, yeah, it's just, I mean, word inspiring is overused, but I have to say it's inspiring. There's lots of different ideas, and just like you just said, how it can be done. From the back of it, it says it demystifies what sustainability means and why it's important that it should become the norm. I mean, for you, what would be your dream for people to, how would you like to see people designing? What would be like, you know, I mean, you've looked at all these different examples, and yourself, your own practice is sustainable, and it's vegan design and everything. How would you, in an ideal world, I mean, we're going to have the magic brush of Biophilic at the end, but for you, I mean, what would be your dream? I mean, what would you like to see designers doing?
But the more I've educated myself on it, you know, I've gone through, I've learned about WELL, and I loved WELL. I mean, I literally felt lit up when I studied the WELL building standard. I didn't take the exam, but I still used the principles, the concepts, and I also had learned about One Planet. And then when I started to write the book, I really wanted to go through the Living Building Challenge study as well. So I'm a Living Building Challenge accredited. I just feel need to consider all impacts, and kind of, you know, looking at my industry, just realizing everything has an impact, and we have a responsibility to lessen that impact, and we have an amazing opportunity to design in a much better way, and just slow down a bit and stop doing things the same way and break that way of doing things. Yeah, I kind of just really, you know, I've kind of learned all the traditional sustainability, but just, you know, more recently feeling much more nature connected in just my life, and kind of listening to nature and kind of responding to nature has been so important. But yeah, I just feel that you've got to kind of feel it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. I've been studying it, and I've been, you know, I took the study for vegan design once I heard about a course on that, which was excellent and so informative, and a real eye opener for me, because even though the body shop work was vegan design before it had the name, it was commercial, and I hadn't realized about the whole host of things that we use in homes. So that kind of was really, really meaningful. But yeah, it's kind of, I would just really want people to sort of feel to sort of kind of wake up really to the impacts really, and it's just, like I said before, it's just an amazing opportunity. And as I said earlier, I learned in my degree that design can be used to problem solve. That is kind of where design is for me. It's not about shopping or saying yes to everything that a client wants. You know, we're there to sort of push the boundaries a little bit. We're there to push back a little bit and suggest things that are better. And so learning about regenerative design and the kind of whole, you know, when I wrote this book, I've kind of split it out into 11 approaches, and I'm sure you will have observed that some of them could have been in each of them. You know, there's lots of crossovers, but this whole working in a circular way without toxic chemicals, with regenerative materials that go back round in the loop, that kind of have a thriving impact like sequestering carbon in the growing of fibers and things that we could be using. Why do we need to look at the sort of negatives when we can do so much, in our specifications, and kind of help the planet so much, and people, planet and animals kind of approach, really. So yeah, sorry, I've gone a bit around the houses, but it was very heartfelt. That's how I feel about it, really.
It's beautiful to hear how you express that too, because you can feel it comes from your heart, and it's and it's right. You have to feel it. I think we're at that point now in terms of design where it's not just a tick box exercise. It's not just about making sure you've got X amount of windows, and I know we need all that for the building standards and all this thing, but I think design is ultimately artists first, or creative first, or whatever you want to say, but you have to be empathetic as well, like we're empathetic maybe to the users, inverted commas, of the space. Is it a family? Is it a workforce? Is it healthcare? Is it patients? Is it kids at school? They're learning. We also have to have that empathy to, well, what's that impact going to have on the nature around us? Are we going to specify digging up the road outside? Are we going to do this? And know what we're going to put back? Are we going to make it more sustainable? And so you use the word regenerative, and I love that. And I think sort of sustainable, we have to be sustainable, but it's regeneration, isn't it? We have to leave it better than we were before.
Yeah, and I feel we've got people using the word sustainable now, and they're kind of understanding it, but we know that that's not enough. This sort of like peddling on the spot is simply not getting us anywhere, because we look at things like Earth Overshoot Day, and the date in the year is slipping. When we go into deficit of our use of the planet's resources. So yeah, I use the word sustainability, and I did explain it early on in the book because it is a familiar word. I kind of didn't want to confuse people by adding in something that would prevent anyone from picking the book up, really. But yeah, regenerative sustainability is really where we need to be. We need to put big efforts into adding and improving, and this whole concept of net positive, which I know can sort of blow your mind a little bit, the thought of it. Not only are we using resources and energy and water footprint, but we are producing things, making things, but we also are improving and kind of in credit. So again, the Living Building Challenge was really great for learning about that, and the Living Product Challenge was something that I just found amazing. One of the labels that they've got, the certifications, is for products, and so that has an impact. So the example that's in the book is the Human Scale's Past chair, which they've examined all the production, but they've also updated the factories. They've kind of looked at how the wildlife, who had been there before, the kind of the impact of the factory buildings, and they've done work on those to kind of lessen their impact as well, so that they are sort of treating the water, capturing all the water, reusing it, kind of making them as self-sufficient as possible. So it's not just the chair, it's the factories as well. And I just think that's super impressive.
Yeah, because that must also inspire the designers of the chairs as well, and the people who are working there, and the actual hands-on manufacturing elements, to know that you're working in a building where it's like walking the walk of the product almost, really, isn't it? It's and it yeah.
And there's such a feel-good factor for that. Everybody's working towards something that's really positive. It's really important to kind of make those efforts. There are so many ripples. And so Bob King, who is the CEO of Human Scale, I probably won't quote him correctly, but he says something like, you've got to do the difficult thing. And that for them, the difficult thing was to sort of push their suppliers and then get their suppliers to push their own suppliers as well, and really have a knock-on effect. So what they've requested, it's a bit like what happened at Body Shop, actually. We used to push in the same way, and that meant that they have gone through that process once, and they're going to offer it to other people that are having things from those factories, you know, kind of, it's going to have a ripple effect. So yeah.
Yes, it's the more ripples that we can spread out, the better, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. One of the other examples of regenerative design that's in the book is the Burwood Brickworks in Melbourne. I mean, there are so many examples, actually. I mean, like you said, there's things that like have elements of this, that, and the other in all of them, which is lovely. So they're kind of all, each one is a holistic kind of example. But that one particularly, I mean, you mentioned the living building sort of standards, but that actually won the Living Building Challenge Petal certification. And it's got an urban farm on the roof. And I like it's what looks like sort of these giant oversized flower pots on the outside of the building. Can you tell us why you chose that one particularly, and for you why it's a great example of regenerative design? Obviously, it's got loads of biophilic design elements too. So
well, and biophilia is such an important part of the Living Building Challenge. It's kind of so it's I think I chose it. I mean, there's so many lovely examples anyway, but I think my reasons for choosing it were that it's such a public building with so many uses. So part of it is this shopping centre, but there's also 750 homes. There's parkland. You know, it's a huge site that has been derelict for like 2 decades. It just felt kind of. I could have shown a house or an office, but it felt like only certain people are going to get to see that. People are going into this building and experiencing. So literally, like, just looking at it, they've kind of, for the facade of the shopping centre, they've put those lemon trees, and they've got, you know, it's kind of, I think it's lemon, or is it orange? But anyway, it's a citrus. They're just, a different way of doing biophilia on a building, even, because we all know, you know, Bosca Verticali and those lovely towers, but this is a lovely way of doing it. And then as you walk in, there's like smellscapes and there's soundscapes just in the entranceways. There's like a citrus, or, you know, it's just, they've thought about all the elements of biophilia. You know, everyone goes for the plant ones, don't they? But we know that there's so many other amazingly impactful parts to it. And then talking of the ripples, so even just staying in the shopping centre, you know, the shops in there, they've all had to, you know, conform to the Living Building Challenge. When it's petal, just means that it hasn't got quite all of the petals. It's not the full flower, but it's kind of, you know, they've got, can't remember how many of them they've got, but there's a significant chunk of the Living Building Challenge has been followed. So every shop has had to be fit out with sustainable timber, which is quite difficult to find in Australia. So they've had to completely look at it in a different way and find lots of reclaimed timber, so that it's been really creatively designed, using that as the basis for the design. You know, so there's a travelator that goes to the cinema. There's a cinema in this shopping centre, and it is kind of completely covered in this really beautifully executed, this kind of just salvage timber. It just looks gorgeous. I mean, I haven't been, but I've seen so much about all of this. I feel like I've been. And then all the tenants, nobody can use any red list chemicals, and the red list, if anyone doesn't know about it, is sort of constantly revised, but it's a list of toxic chemicals that you must avoid. And that is quite a big deal for some of these big chains. But the thing that just really stays with me is that one of the tenants is a nail bar, and the chemicals used in the products. I mean, I've stopped using any now because I can, you know, it's going into your body. We're putting these horrible, but of course it's awful for the people that are working with those chemicals. So they've had to look at different products to use in the nail bar. And all of these things are having ripples for those retailers in their other shops elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then they do kind of lots of, everybody is sort of sharing their learnings of their journey. The whole thing is kind of handheld by this amazing man called Stephen Choi, who seems like such a great personality to kind of engage all the people, because all the site waste was minimal. It's something like 99% of it was like not wasted, and only 1% went to landfill. But by kind of working as a group and having a really good person steering it, it's just been a really, really successful project. And then, yeah, you've got the urban farm on the roof, which is just staggering. And then all the homes and the parkland and putting nature back. And I just absolutely loved it. And because I worked near there when I was sent there from the Body Shop to work for 9 months on the store concept. And so I can visualize the area, and I can, it's sort of suburban Melbourne, and just it's very well loved, and yes, great.
Yeah. And like you say, there's like the whole thing about biophilic design. It's not just about putting plants in the corner. It is about looking at that whole, I use the word holistic again, but it's looking at that holistic approach, that sensual and sensory sensory approach really to design and spaces. Yeah, no, I think it's lovely. And I actually like the thing as well, because it's challenging the people who are actually in that retail area as well. We could do with more of these over here, really, couldn't we? You know what I mean? That whole idea. If you look at the shopping centres now, and everything's like, it's all very, I don't know, it just feels like you're in a hermetically sealed Tupperware box with like, you know, I use the word cookie cutter, but they're the same shops everywhere you go. So there's no also individuality, is there? So there's no reason to go somewhere else. You might as well just go to the one that's local to you. You know what I mean? Or you might as well, there's no I don't know, there's no beauty. Well, there's sort of elements of beauty, and some of it can be quite amazing the way they design things. But do you know, it's so far removed from nature, isn't it? Some of these spaces. So
And it's characterless.
yes.
They this is encouraging people to broaden their thinking. Everybody's kind of, it's delivering. It's so positive. It's just think it's lovely for people visiting.
Yeah.
I've been very impressed with it. Yeah.
We've got an issue coming up at the end of this year, and it's on retail. So it's how we bring biophilic design into retail. So yeah, so it'd be great to have you write for that, if that's all right, Chloe, because I think like you need something else to write. Like you're pretty all written out by now. But so it's going to be a really good issue, and that's coming out at the end of this year, 2020.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, in the book, and I think as well, one of the lots of the conversations I have with designers and architects and and landscape architects and all that kind of thing, is the supply chain. It's particularly if they're not, if they're a smaller business or whatever, and they're struggling and they're trying to gain box tick, they keep having to go to the same suppliers and find the same materials. And obviously listening to your background and knowing that you work for the Body Shop and your whole passion for this and how your approach is different and what you're encouraging is different, you've got a whole thing on materials, and obviously that's so important. And obviously, biophilic design specifying like wood grain. Are there any products for you or any sort of like ideas that really stand out for you as ones that you think people should know exist? I mean, you mentioned vegan design. Are there any sort of products or anything in your own portfolio that you use that, I don't know, just might encourage people to challenge the way they're sourcing their products?
Well, there's a couple of things to mention. So we'll talk about interior design declares, but when we were devising who we were going to include on that, everybody except for me said we've got to include our supply chain, because of my Body Shop background of scrutinizing everything, and knew that we need like a whole team of people. But we are actually including our supply chain because we can't move without including them. We need to kind of all work together on improving. So there was, as well as doing the Living Building Challenge as part of writing the book, I've been toying with becoming a B Corp, and I just thought I've got to just get on with it, because I wanted to write about it in my ethical business chapter. So I just thought you've got to do it. So I just got on with it. And that kind of formalized quite a lot of things that I had, like, I've kind of I have got a working process, but I hadn't actually sort of formally put it down. And so that's now something that I can visualize and refer to. So I've actually got it on my Linktree and on my website if anybody wants to have a look at it. I've got a ton of resources sitting there. I just keep adding more and more things as I do them, but hopefully they'll be useful to people. But so kind of as I select things for clients, I kind of go down this filter of what have they got that's reusable? What exists as a piece of FF&E that I can get that's reused, and kind of go through this sort of stage by stage, right down to, you know, like if I've got to buy new, I've really got to set myself some targets for like reducing the amount of new stuff that I buy for clients. So I'm sort of internally challenging myself to improve how I work. And often clients don't even know any of that's going on. it's all within me. And another thing that I've kind of got to help myself is I've been using this piece of software for quite a lot of years now, probably 6 or 7 years. My Doma Studio. So it's a piece of software for interior designers to use, and an element of it is this digital library. So I love going to exhibitions and I love to collect things and kind of research. I don't always have the projects for it, but I put it all in the library, keep it there, so I can kind of just, you know, when I get the right client, things are there to select, so I don't have to go doing that all from scratch. So that's been really helpful, kind of, you know, making life hard for myself, but also easier for myself with that. So that's been good. But yeah, clients aren't always aligned with what I offer, you know, and sometimes they don't want all of it. And we have a lot of interpretations of sustainability. Some clients, I mean, I'm very fortunate to work for a really lovely couple or family who are having a passive house. And I've been working on that all the time that the book's been happening. It's been really interesting and educational. And obviously that's a highly energy efficient house, but it doesn't necessarily look at capturing water or becoming self-sufficient in any other way. You know, there's not necessarily any growing of food going on or the sort of interaction with nature. So it's kind of from an energy perspective, it's you know, that's what's kind of interest to them. And I'm being careful about the materials that I introduce, but it isn't necessarily as important to the clients. But if I can be showing them things that are just on their own, just great and look great and perform well, I don't have to explain, you know, I don't have to give them all the background of everything. But so that's kind of what I do with avoiding animal products as well. You know, I don't want to talk about negative things. I just show people great things that are exciting and kind of try and dwell in the positive rather than in the negative.
That's lovely. I think we could all do with more of that, actually, living in the positive rather than the negative. It sort of cascades through your life. And I think as well, if you create spaces that are so imbued with, like, you know, where it's come from as well, you know, this positivity, that's got to like somehow engender, it's, you know, it's got to somehow, you know, engender that positivity into the inhabitants, you know, the people who are using that space, you know, things that are filled with joy. It just then just cascade into your soul, you know.
I believe that. Yeah, I don't want misery in my clients' spaces. I don't want it in my own space. I know that when I walk past things, they can make me feel good or bad. You know, I don't want that for my clients, even if they know about it or not. I just, you know, I want to know as much as possible, you know, with the transparency on offer, who's made things. I'm concerned about the people in our supply chains as well. So I just kind of want to make it as lighter impact as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, light touch and happiness, and I think as well, one of the things about Biophilic design is that it does bring that joy. You kind of create these spaces that just bring joy. It's like, I mean, that awe for me is always a thing. And, you know, awe can be little moments too, can't it? You know, it can be these little moments of seeing a beautiful plant flourish or a flower come out, or, you know, the light, you know, sun, you know, the sun just all of a sudden cascades through the through the door, and you're like, oh, it just gives you that, oh, it's just uplifting moment, isn't it? Yeah, I think we should design with more joy. And I think actually you're saying about passive house, maybe we should have like a biophilic house. Could do like a flat pack biophilic house that's like all from reusable materials, and it can be like constructed and created or co-created with people wherever it is. I mean, it's like a sort of rough template.
Yeah.
And then people can sort of, if they choose to, they can be that sort of designer in that area just to create that biophilic house with all the elements in.
Well, you just made me think how, because I often think this kind of, I've presented these 11 approaches, but I don't want them to be taken as like silos. I want people to cross-pollinate between them all.
Yeah.
And so you've just reminded me of in the sharing economy chapter, I've written about WikiHouse, which is like this shared, it's sharing of plans for buildings that you can then have CNC cut wherever you are. There's also a furniture version called Open Desk. So again, you can have that desk, but I'm here, so I'm going to get it made by these people near to me and construct, so it doesn't have to travel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love lots of cross-pollinating. And one thing I didn't get to write about, but if there is ever going to be a future of one of these and I've got the energy for it, an active house seemed really interesting. So for me, that seemed to be bringing together passive house with sort of well principles, and less sort of mechanical solutions as well. So there is some kind of cross-pollinating happening out there.
Yeah. I think it's lovely. I think it's lovely. We should definitely talk again, because when you get to that point, I'll be having you on before anyway, but that'll be a good one to talk about. Just jump back a little bit. So interior design declares, you mentioned it there, and obviously I mentioned it at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is, and what their ambitions are, maybe what it's achieved, but also how people can get involved, who can get involved as well? I mean, you mentioned supply chain as well, but can you tell us a bit about that, please?
So it's obviously we've all watched Architects Declare happen and grow, and meanwhile there's been some other declarations happening around it in the built environment. So I'd tried to join Architects Declares at least twice, and they're like, no, you're an interior designer, would you like to set up one for interior design? And I think the second or third time I heard that, I kind of, by then I was on the sustainability committee of the BIID, my professional body. And so I knew like-minded people. And so I sort of spoke to Simone Suss and Brian Wolf, and also Kat Hode from Absolute Project Management. And then we kind of asked the organisers, it's called Built Environment Declares, which is like the overarching group. And they had some other interior designers ask to join in the same way that I had. So we kind of basically gathered everybody and we set it up. And so the idea is it's a declaration that there is a climate and biodiversity crisis, acknowledging that it is happening and sort of joining together to help our industry improve. So, and a big part of that is sharing knowledge. So when we set up, as I said earlier, we weren't just going to be designers, we were going to be supply chain, and that is goods and services. So we can really pick up everybody in our industry, really, should they want to join. At the moment, we're just over sort of 300-ish signatories, and we're 3 years in. So it's it's just a really great way to get everyone together, really. We are very volunteer run, and so we kind of have some limitations on that, but we are all very enthusiastic to sort of help our industry. And one of the ways we can kind of get people to listen to us is to be on panel discussions. So we've been on lots of panels for various shows. Future Build, we had a stand there, which was beautiful, and then Decorex kind of gave us a panel discussion each day of the show, which was great, because for me, Decorex, the panel discussions have been very, they've got more and more sustainability focused. the show itself kind of felt a little bit disjointed, but it's kind of getting better, and there's much more going on, and they had a whole craft area last time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to just influence our industry as much as we can, really, and we're now run by a steering group, so we've picked up some more people that are interested, and it's been great. It's been a really nice way to get to know. Personally, it's just been lovely to get to know other people that like working in the same way as you. And it's it's lovely to feel like you're having an impact. Obviously, I'd like to pick up a lot more signatories, and we will, and it will just keep growing. We're growing steadily. So, and we have a voice in this kind of built environment declares, have a monthly meeting, so we can sort of feed into that. And we gather resources, and we have a quarterly newsletter, which is really our main way of kind of keeping in touch with everybody. And it is one of those things that you kind of, there's so much in it you have to come back to and kind of keep it for later, but it's been really important to sort of, because we can see it's this cross-pollinating thing again. We can see lots of resources out there, but other people might not know they're there, so let's get them all in one place. So we put them on our website, and we have got behind the FR chemical campaign as well. And there was a review last year by the government of the sort of where we were with FR chemicals in domestic furniture, and we were able to sort of formally send in a statement, and we were able to engage our signatories and our industry in that, and kind of give some steer of what we thought about it, because they're clearly making improvements, but there's always there's more to do.
Yes. So FR chemicals are fire retardant chemicals?
Yeah.
And
so in the UK we seem to have been left with the most FR chemicals in our furniture as anywhere in the world. Other countries have kind of gone backwards a little, not backward, they've reduced them, and kind of looked at other ways and recognised there's lots of factors in this, but people aren't smoking at home in the same way that they used to. They don't have to put chemicals into everything. There's other ways of kind of treating the problem. So we've kind of been left with a lot of them, which are harmful to occupant health, but they're harmful to the people that work with those chemicals all day. It's harmful to the environment, and we can't actually work in a circular way while there's chemicals in what we're using. It just doesn't regenerate. So that felt really important to get involved with. And then last of all, it kind of derived a bit from my body shop kind of checklist that we used to use. We've put together a supplier screening questionnaire, which is, it's an Excel document. It's not particularly exciting looking, but people can download it and they can edit it to use how they want to. They can use it as a telephone kind of query when they're talking to suppliers about things and it's literally, we've thrown everything at it. It's kind of got all the different certifications, and just to get as much transparency to then be able to make an informed choice with your client or for your client on what you're going to work with. So, and we will be adding more and more of our own resources as we go as well, but that's quite a key one. So.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, can people join? I mean, I'll put the links and things on the spiel that goes on the website, but is it open to interior designers?
Yeah, so it's interior designers and suppliers of goods or services to our industry. And if you are, all you need is, you need to be the kind of the CEO of the company. We need to have the CEOs engaged in what we're doing.
Decision makers, isn't it?
Yeah. Because we've found that there's lots of enthusiastic people that are working in companies, but they need to get the top, get it influencing from the top down. And so in supply chains, we need to have a sustainability statement for the suppliers, just so we need that sort of stake in the ground. We need that. It might not be a perfect one, but just get something on your website and then have something to build upon.
Yeah.
Because so we're trying to encourage that sort of first step into sustainability if people haven't already got that on their website. And then we all work together and share learnings and get improved together.
No, that's great. I think it's such a great initiative. Really, I think it's a brilliant initiative. Do you think that sustainability, regenerative design, do you think it's achievable? Do you think we'll ever get there?
Well, there's enough people out there proving it's doable. And that's really what I wanted to show in the book, was kind of, I did hit people with a lot of facts and try and present it in a beautiful way using this amazing illustrator Eleanor Branch to do that. But then I really wanted to quickly switch to like, but here's people actually doing it. You know, it's not a theoretical thing, it's out there. And here's 40 projects from around the world that can show you that this is happening on all scales. So, you know, be influenced by these projects and use those to kind of talk to your clients about following any of those project goals as well. And so, yeah, it just felt important to demonstrate rather than just keep hitting people over the head with sort of guilt.
I know, exactly. I know. I think like we're just going back to like, there's so much negativity and there's so much like, oh, you know, there's a disaster. But, you know, if we would just keep going around that little circle, we're going to end up in a drain hole and no one's going to do anything. So, you know, that's why I set up the journal really. And it is good news, I suppose. It's good news stories, but there's more. I think ultimately, actually, there's more good than bad anyway that's happening now in terms of design and well, maybe not construction, but I think there's a will there. I don't think they know the way. And I think the more we can do, like your book and the Interior Design Declares and Architect Declares and all these other ones and the Well Building Standards and then legislation from the government, I think as well. And then the education pieces, you know, I think that's really important. And there's culture shifts that need to happen after they've had the education. It's like, oh yeah, well, and then to be seen not to be doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, if you're not doing it, you're an idiot. You know, or do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not saying that we should sort of be negative that way back, but it's like you know, just nurturing the fact that, look, you know, this is a really good way of doing things. It's profitable and it's better for you, it's better for your people. They're more productive, they're more creative. And, you know, if you're even on a construction site, I interviewed Andrew Warr about the Thistle building.
Oh,
the black and white building. Andrew Warr from Warr Thistleton Architects, and he said, you know, that they were like gone, you know, there and gone really quickly. They didn't have to wear like a gazillion bunch of PPE because it was all modular. It was a quiet build, so in the street was great, so you didn't have the noise pollution. Obviously, you didn't have the pollution, and they had like the tiny. There was no landfill. Basically, like you get this bonkers amount of landfill. I can't remember the figure he used. That's you know, the construction in London was it that's put in the landfill. So yeah, there's all this lovely stuff that's going on, and it can be done. We just need more exemplars, I think. And so talking of exemplars, we're kind of nearly the end, but I did want to touch on, you've got a section on biophilic design in the book, chapter 8, and there's some lovely examples in there. But I have to say that studio, the Sharma Springs project, Studio Gutaraquena, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, was lovely. And so was the school, the Biophilic school. It was like, oh my God, there's so many examples. But can you explain why you included that one or any of the others? I mean, what was it about those? I mean, obviously there's biophilic design elements, but what were the things that really sort of, you know, called out to you, particularly in terms of biophilic design, that kind of, again, I'm not going to use the word tick the box, but kind of like, you know, you know, regenerative design, sustainable design.
There were just lots of lovely examples out there, which I consciously chose to have a healthy building section as well as a biophilic design, because I just wanted the opportunity to talk about so many more. Because but so with the biophilic design one, so yeah, I mean, Sharma Springs was quite new to me, and when I was doing my research, I wasn't sort of doing traditional research really. I've been doing, you know, watching TED Talks and following hashtags and, you know, just kind of doing things in a slightly different way. And so I found Elora Hardy's TED Talk and then watched her. She was on one of the Apple TV. We don't have Apple TV, so I hadn't known about this program that she'd been on. And I mean, it's amazing. It's a 5-story bamboo house. It's incredible, and everything about it, it is in the middle of nature. It is staggering. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I guess it's quite easy to do that in the middle of all of that. But even still, it is a really beautiful example. And I got to talk to the engineer who went on to work with them later on some of the other projects, like the gym that's received awards recently. And so he's sort of talking about the incredible strength of bamboo and how it should be considered as a building material and combined with wood and used in other parts of the world as well. And then obviously Oliver Heath, he's part of interior design, declares, and I've got to know him, and he's obviously brilliant. And I found his project that he'd done in the centre of London, the Remind Clinic.
Yeah.
So that kind of seemed to be really testing biophilic design, having underground trains going underneath this building and buses and noise and what he and his team have created there is just beautiful. And it's challenging space. It's just been done really, really well, really. And it just shows that biophilic design can exist in both ends of this. And then the studio, I can never pronounce his name very well.
Puto Requena.
That's it. So he, I mean, I felt like I should have known about him, but he was on Queer Eye in Brazil. He was one of the men on that.
Yeah.
And he, that's his home with his husband. And basically it's a brutalist building. And he's kind of created this multifunctional, highly biophilic apartment for his home. And he's growing food in there. He's got it's just like a lush vegetation. It's just, but he's combined it with high technology. So it's completely, it's everything's automated to enhance the biophilic experience of the space. There's moving bits of furniture that sort of segregate the space. Ever so clever. It's just this kind of like opposite ends again. Yeah. And the piece of furniture that I've written about, this sideboard, is kind of electronic kind of pulses kind of and forming a shape, and then putting that onto a really grainy, beautiful timber that's a piece of furniture in this space, which is available as a piece of furniture to buy generally as well. And I just thought they kind of, all these examples sort of pulled it in different directions, but just really showed the full kind of the possibilities, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, enjoyed writing about those. But in the healthy building, that was kind of more about sort of passively materials that can passively regulate into indoor air quality and things like that, and kind of getting people thinking about that as well, because the Well Building Standard is very mechanically operated kind of healthy indoor spaces, but there's other ways as well. So just wanted to show lots of ways of doing it, really.
Yeah, it's really there's some really great ideas, and I love how you've, just like you said, you've sort of focused down on a piece of furniture, and then you look at like urban farming and all this kind of, all these things that all kind of just sort of net together to create beautiful spaces that are sustainable and inspiring, and and we'll be there as well. They've got they're there forever as well, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? You can repurpose, reuse as well. So
and one thing that I've learned in the circular economy chapter was this notion of emotional durability. So when you have that huge connection to a space, you're going to hang on to it longer, and it's going to have its longest life, and people are going to be happy, and it's just so many reasons to get it right and tune into nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's like mugs and cups. So I love hand thrown mugs and ceramics.
Oh,
I've got some lovely friends who are potters, Brigitte Colo and Sven Bayer, and people might know them, but they're delightful to hold, and you've got their energy of the earth and the people who've made it in the time, and I you can buy a mug from a supermarket chain, and I know it's got like a pretty picture on the side and you love it, but it doesn't have the energy or the love that's imbued in something that's handmade or hand thrown. And the amount of money I probably saved by keeping one mug because I love it so much. And yeah, I probably
it's a really good example.
yeah, it's probably like saving the prosperity of me as well as the planet there. So
Yeah,
um
there's so many elements to it of goodness.
yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, we're getting near the end, and there's so many things I could ask you. I could just talk to you for hours, actually,
Oh,
Chloe. But is there any before I ask you the final magic question, is there anything else that you would like to add?
uh, well, no, I mean, yeah, it's just this kind of, it's just lovely to feel like you're doing something about a problem. And I can't enhance that enough and push that enough to people kind of and also the I think because I'm a sole practitioner interior designer, I never thought that Reba Publishing knew about me, and you know, don't underestimate what impact you can have as one person. you know, uh, that's kind of don't feel that you can't do anything because you can. That's kind of something that I'd like to pass on.
That's lovely. Well, thank you for that. Um, so the final question that I ask everyone on the end of the podcast, if you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
I suppose it goes back to what I said at the beginning, and just this, it deeply recognizing that we are nature. It provides most things for us. We literally owe our survival to it. So kind of just got to factor nature into the whole equation of everything we do, and be conscious and compassionate in as much as you can, and just, yeah, if we don't do something now, we're going to be doing a lot later, and it's better to, you know act now, and yeah, because it all goes back to nature. All these chapters go back to nature and how we treat the planet, and everybody on it, and I include, wildlife and animals, and it's just, yeah, recognizing that we are nature.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.